In short, in a single term, the Supreme Court could demolish pillars of the progressive movement. And as someone who's worked on every single one of these issues for decades, I see this as a make or break moment.
Hillary Clinton warned us. In March of 2016, she implored voters to get serious about the Supreme Court and explicitly laid out the fragile future of Roe, noting that the court was reviewing a Texas law that could end legalized abortion. Despite the court striking down that law, months later, she sounded the alarm again, saying the fight was far from over and saying that, quote, the outcome of November's contests from the presidency to state legislatures is going to be a deciding factor in whether our elected officials and our courts defend or attack a woman's right to health care for generations to come. Now, if warnings from Secretary Clinton and so many others had been taken seriously, this dark day for American women could have been avoided. Now, Mitch McConnell's stolen right-wing court is on the precipice of ripping away 50 years of protected rights. But again, the indications were there. And during Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing in 2018, the winner of the 2016 popular vote warned us again. Clinton wrote, if Brett Kavanaugh becomes a Supreme Court justice, will he help gut or overturn Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion in America? Yes, of course he will. One person who clearly did not get the message was so-called moderate Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins, who voted for two of Donald Trump's nominees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, and repeatedly assured everyone that they would uphold Roe.
Don't you think, just as an academic matter, Neil Gorsuch, for whom you voted, don't you think he's probably going to vote to overturn Roe versus Wade if given the chance?
I actually don't. We talked about whether he considered Roe to be settled law. He said that he agreed with what Justice Roberts said at his nomination hearing, in which he said that it was settled law. I do not believe that Brett Kavanaugh will overturn Roe.
Precedents are overturned.
Well, today, Senator Collins said she found it completely inconsistent that the two would be among the majority of conservative justices to support overturning Roe v. Wade. Join me now, Liz Winstead, comedian, co-creator of The Daily Show and founder of Abortion Access Front, and Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation, and also two people who've been saying that this was going to happen. Let me play one more person who was quite surprised by the turn of events, Lisa Murkowski. This is what she's saying now, because she was quite also supportive of these same nominees. Here's Lisa Murkowski today.
If it goes in the direction that this leaked copy has indicated, I will just tell you that it rocks my confidence in the court right now.
Liz, better late than never. But what do you think it means that you have these two, sort of moderate conservative women senators who've now been their faith has been rocked in the court?
Well, first of all, I'm disappointed she didn't actually clutch her pearls that were hanging around her neck. She actually missed an opportunity to actually do the clutching. But for Susan Collins, the thing that is so upsetting, and I know, Ellie, you're going to know where I'm going with this, for her to be so convinced about Brett Kavanaugh, when Brett Kavanaugh was on the D.C. court and was the dissenting opinion, when an undocumented person who was incarcerated at the border needed an abortion. He was the person who did not want to allow her to get her legal access to abortion. There didn't have to be any digging around it. It was there in plain sight. And yet she's shocked at what she heard. I don't even know what to say. It's so appalling.
Yeah. Let me play three of the other justices who are likely in this majority to overturn Roe. This is Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett in their confirmation hearings.
So a good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court, worthy as treatment of precedent like any other.
One of the important things to keep in mind about Roe v. Wade is that it has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years.
Roe is not a super precedent because calls for its overruling have never ceased, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
All right, let me play one more. Here's Samuel Alito, the author of the upcoming overturning of Roe.
Roe versus Wade is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. It was decided in 1973 So it's been on the books for a long time. It has been challenged on a number of occasions, and I discussed those yesterday, and the Supreme Court has reaffirmed the decision, sometimes on the merits, sometimes in Casey, based on stare decisis. And I think that when a decision is challenged and it is reaffirmed, that strengthens its value.
I mean, those were lies, right, Ellie? And stare decisis isn't real, right?
Yes, they're lying. They've always been lying. And frankly, if you're the idiot who believed their lies all the way through, then you're too stupid to be a United States senator. Obviously, they were lying. They've been lying the entire time. But my question is simply to the Democrats, now, what are you prepared to do? Now that their lies have been exposed, now that the obvious jig is up, what did you think was going to happen in 2004 when they replaced Sandra Day O'Connor, the deciding vote in Planned Parenthood v. Casey, with Samuel Alito? What did you think was going to happen when 52% of white women and 62% of white men couldn't vote for the email lady and instead voted for Donald Trump? What did you think was going to happen when Mitch McConnell stole the Supreme Court seat? What did you think was going to happen when these people had a COVID party on top of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's grave? What did you think they were celebrating? Did you think they were, oh, yay, federalism? Was that the party? No, they promised to do this. They are doing it. Now, what are you prepared to do to stop them from doing it is the only question that matters today.
Well, and Liz, you know, they're not just doing this. I mean, the glee is not even ending. I mean, there is right now a group of Republican senators who are putting together a plan to pass, the moment they get a Senate majority, their first action, I'm assuming, is James Langford is behind it, as well as the senator from Iowa, Joni Ernst. They want a total ban on abortion, so you wouldn't even be able to travel to a blue state. Essentially, they would like to ban abortion nationwide. What are we going to do about that?
Well, and that's what I think people need to realize is that Roe v. Wade means it goes to the states, and if it goes to the Oklahoma, James Langford State, which, by the way, just today, their governor just signed a 6-week ban that went into effect immediately. So there is that whole pocket of places where people can't get abortions at all. I think this was the plan all along. And I have to tell you, Joy, that sometimes I try to be rational in where I need to place my anger, because a lot of times I looked at my fellow Democrats, my fellow progressives who kept telling me that I was irrational. I feel slightly gaslit by the amount of times people told me that this was not happening. And Ellie laid it out perfectly. As we told people, it makes you really feel like, to answer Ellie's question, do they care enough to do something? Is it just Joe Manchin, or do they care enough to do something? Because it's not enough anymore to just bat away horrifying legislation. We need to be proactive in expanding access. And does our party have it in them? And it's up to us to actually fuel that fire. I really do believe that we're going to see if this 70% of people who believe that a person's right to an abortion should always exist and Roe should exist, then we have to fight for it.